Hi, I'm Jake. I'm 35 years old, born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been through one of the darkest periods of my life, and today, I want to share every detail with you. This story isn't just mine. It's also the story of thousands of others who struggle with addiction. I hope this serves as a beacon of hope for you or someone you care about. I was born into a large, chaotic family. With 8 siblings, our home was always bustling. My parents worked tirelessly to keep food on the table, but the financial strain was overwhelming. Despite their hard work, there was little room for individual attention, love, or care. I often felt invisible, lost in the noise of my siblings and the demands of daily life. No matter how loud we yelled or how desperately we sought attention, it was like screaming into the void. That lack of attention created a deep emotional void in me. Even as a child, I yearned for love and validation, but they were luxuries my family simply couldn't provide. At school, things weren't any better. I struggled academically and socially. The teasing and judgment from classmates made me feel even more alienated. I began to believe the cruel words I heard, that I was worthless, destined for nothing. These thoughts shaped my perception of myself and planted the seeds of the destructive path I would later take. By the time I turned 13, I was spending more time outside than at home. The streets became my escape. They promised a kind of acceptance I couldn't find anywhere else. I met a group of older kids who seemed confident, free, and fearless. Everything I wanted to be. One day, one of them handed me a joint. "Try it," they said. "It'll make you feel good." At first I hesitated, but the pull of curiosity and the desire to fit in were stronger. I took my first hit of marijuana, and for the first time, the weight of my emotions seemed to lift. It felt like I could finally breathe. But that relief was deceptive. What started as a simple joint quickly spiraled. The group introduced me to alcohol, and then to pills like ecstasy and LSD. Each substance promised a new kind of escape, a deeper thrill. But every high came with a crash, and soon, I found myself chasing that initial euphoria, desperate to feel it again. By my late teens, my drug use wasn't just a habit. It was my entire identity. I spent every waking moment planning how to get my next fix. My grades plummeted, and I stopped caring about anything other than the high. My family noticed the changes, but their attempts to intervene only pushed me further away. The drugs gave me a false sense of control. I thought I was invincible, untouchable, but in reality, I was falling deeper into a pit I couldn't climb out of. My relationships with my family and friends began to crumble. I became someone they couldn't recognize or trust. At 18, I left for Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. My parents were hopeful that college would set me on the right path. For a brief moment, I believed it too, but I brought my addiction with me. At college, I found a new group of friends who shared my destructive habits. We experimented with new ways to use drugs. One of our favorite inventions was the bucket rig, a homemade contraption for smoking weed. It felt like we were engineers, pushing the boundaries of innovation. But in truth, we were just sinking deeper into our addictions. I stopped attending classes altogether. My days blurred into nights filled with drug use, and the person I once was seemed like a distant memory. By 2003, I was expelled from college. My family was devastated, and so was I. But instead of facing my failures, I turned to drugs to numb the pain. After college, I moved back home, but things were worse than ever. My mother was battling cancer, and my family needed me, but I was too consumed by my addiction to be there for them. One day, I got a call from my sister. "Jake, you need to come home now," she said. "Mom's not doing well." But I was in the middle of a drug binge. I promised I'd come, but hours passed before I could pull myself together. When I finally arrived, my mother was barely conscious. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "I don't forgive you." Those words shattered me. Moments later, she was gone. Even now, I carry the weight of her final words. But at the time, they weren't enough to break the chains of my addiction. After my mother's death, I spiraled out of control. I burned through what little money I had left and found myself living on the streets. Every day was a struggle to survive. I slept in abandoned buildings, rummaged through trash for food, and stole anything I could sell for drug money. I started using heroin and methamphetamine. The first time I injected myself, I felt an overwhelming rush. But that rush came at a price. My body began to deteriorate, my veins collapsed, and my skin became scarred from constant injections. I went weeks without showering, and the stench of my own body was unbearable. One night, I was caught stealing a bottle of cooking oil from a grocery store. The store manager locked me in the storage room, and as I sat there, I realized how far I'd fallen. But even that moment of clarity wasn't enough to make me stop. One freezing winter night, I woke up under a thin blanket of snow. A stray dog was curled up beside me, sharing what little warmth it had. That night, something inside me shifted. I realized that if I didn't change, I wouldn't survive another winter. A friend convinced me to check into a rehab center. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made. The detox process was brutal. My body went through excruciating withdrawals. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. But as the days passed, the fog began to lift. I started to see glimpses of the person I used to be. Rehab didn't just cleanse my body. It also gave me the tools to rebuild my life. I attended therapy sessions where I confronted the pain and trauma that had fueled my addiction. I learned to forgive myself and to accept that recovery was a lifelong journey. After completing rehab, I decided to dedicate my life to helping others. I co-founded a rehab center in Louisiana, where we provide physical and emotional support to people battling addiction. Former addicts like me mentor newcomers, offering guidance and understanding that only someone who's been there can provide. Today, I'm proud of the life I've built. Sharing my story isn't easy, but if it can inspire just one person to seek help, then it's worth it. Addiction is a powerful force, but with hope, support, and determination, recovery is possible. Life is precious, and I'm grateful for every moment I get to live it.